This is Danish English news updates and business from January 15th through 21st. Welcome to Danish Info News TV, your trusted source for the latest headlines from Denmark and beyond. Let's look at today's main stories. Customs seized almost 30,000 cigarettes at Copenhagen airport. Garbage collectors face sharp rise in workplace injuries. And much more from politics, crime, business, and society. Let's begin with the first of our main story. From Monday, January 19th, Customs seizes 28,000 cigarettes at Copenhagen airport. On January 19, Danish Customs stopped a traveler at Copenhagen airport carrying 28,000 cigarettes in their luggage, far exceeding the legal limit of 200 cigarettes allowed when entering Denmark. According to Customs Director Jeppe Kjærgaard, the case highlights the importance of strong border controls as tobacco smuggling defrauds public funds and raises concerns about the safety and origin of illegally imported products. The case has been handed over to Copenhagen police and the traveler has been charged under Denmark's customs law. In 2024, Danish Customs recorded around 2,700 attempts to illegally import tobacco and seized approximately 940,000 cigarettes nationwide. To the last of our main stories from Tuesday, January 20th. Garbage collectors face rising workplace injuries. A new campaign by the Danish Working Environment Authority urges homeowners to help reduce injuries among garbage collectors by ensuring proper lighting, cleaning paths, placing bins at the curb, and salting icy areas. Reported work injuries among garbage collectors rose by 33% in 2025 compared to 2021. Slippery surfaces, poor visibility, and obstacles in driveways are key factors, especially during winter months. Garbage collector Stefan Markusen from Tuna municipality says, unsafe conditions create constant tension and fear of falling. Despite safety measures, accidents still happen and a colleague was recently injured after slipping on ice. The campaign is welcomed by waste company Milgaard, whose CEO Line Milgaard stresses shared responsibility between companies and citizens. Each garbage collector handles 300 to 500 bins daily, and in 2025, more than 9 accidents per week were reported. The goal is to build a culture that better protects the workers who keep the communities clean. Now to some other news. We begin on Thursday, January 15th. A person was arrested after a fire on the 3rd floor of an apartment building in Hellesløv. Police suspect arson, and at least one person was taken to hospital for a check. A 36-year-old man admitted setting fire to a barn in Slangerup to help a childhood friend. The fire spread and destroyed 5 buildings. Esbjerg approved funding for a 2-kilometer concrete wall to protect the city from storm surges. Nyborg municipality reported a budget shortfall of 72 million krona for 2026 due to rising welfare costs. Now to news from Friday, January 16th. We begin on foreign policy. Russia stated it recognized Greenland as Danish territory and commented on the security situation around the island. President Donald Trump's special envoy plans to visit Greenland in March. A Polish woman was permanently expelled from Denmark after being convicted of possessing about 2 kilos of amphetamine. Several crime cases were reported, including drug possession by minors, multiple fraud cases, and violent incidents. 2 people were linked in a shooting near Gilleleje. Danish authorities searched a cargo ship in Skagen, suspected of oil pollution. A Danish-owned Offshore wind project sued U.S. authorities over a construction halt. Saturday, January 17th. Streets in Copenhagen were closed due to a demonstration near the U.S. Embassy. A woman and a man were remanded in custody in Vibo in a case involving kidnapping, torture, and robbery. 2 women were violently assaulted at Horsens train station. An 18-year-old man was later jailed. Police reported additional cases involving drug sales, theft from an elderly woman, and violent crime. A citizen's proposal to strengthen animal welfare laws gained over 50,000 signatures. Record numbers of Danes received organ transplants last year. New studies found no link between Panadol, paracetamol use during pregnancy, and autism, and questioned assumptions about social media causing mental health problems. Sunday, January 18th. 8 European countries issued a joint statement expressing solidarity with Denmark and Greenland. Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen began a series of visits focused on Arctic issues. Denmark saw a sharp rise in volunteer soldiers joining the Home Guard. Train cancellations continued across Jutland due to signal failures. Several violent and traffic-related incidents were reported, including stabbings and cases of reckless driving. S-train services in Copenhagen were temporarily halted after a person was hit by a train. Henrik Goldstein, former head of the Jewish community in Denmark, died at the age of 77. Ærø Efterskole announced it will close due to low enrollment. More than 10,000 Danish seniors returned to work after retirement in 2024. Prices for public transport tickets increased nationwide. Monday, January 19th. U.S. President Donald Trump linked the Greenland issue to the Nobel Peace Prize in a letter to Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre. U.S. Council President Antonio Costa called EU leaders to an extraordinary crisis summit on Greenland following Trump's threat of punitive tariffs. Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen expressed condolences and solidarity with Spain after a deadly train accident that killed at least 39 people. A 52-year-old man was sentenced to 6 months in prison and warned of expulsion for sending his family on a re-education trip to Syria. A 51-year-old Polish man was fined 115,000 Danish krona after being stopped at the border with undeclared gold coins. A 43-year-old man was sentenced to 8 years in prison for repeated sexual abuse of a minor. A 17-year-old was remanded in custody for possession of multiple types of drugs intended for resale. Several violent and criminal incidents were reported, including robbery, assault, arson at a care facility, and unexplained death cases. The Danish government allocated over 60 million Danish krona to boost children's reading and literacy. New initiatives were announced on prison reintegration, diabetes prevention, and public health. Bispebjerg Hospital was affected by water contamination and distributed bottled water to patients and staff. Tuesday, January 20th. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated that Greenland is not a natural part of Denmark while denying Russia or Chinese ambitions toward the island. Denmark's foreign ministry confirmed an inquiry from China regarding entry rules for people from Taiwan. 2 truck drivers were charged with driving under the influence during a targeted police operation. A man was sentenced for large-scale tax evasion involving the import of over 350,000 liters of beer. Train cancellations continued in parts of Jutland due to signal failures. Authorities detained 24 debtors who failed to appear in enforcement court proceedings. Police warn about extortion scams after a citizen was blackmailed following a Facebook post about a missing cat. An 18-year-old man received a suspended sentence for sharing intimate images of a minor. Bus drivers criticize operator Go Collective after a fatal accident in East Jutland. A 21-year-old man died in a single-vehicle traffic accident. Tivoli announced new supervision rules for minors at Friday concerts. eBox launched a new AI-based tool to help users understand, summarize, and translate digital mail. Now to news from Wednesday, January 21st. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen is set to meet UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer on Thursday, also attended an extraordinary EU summit in Brussels focused on US tariff threats linked to Greenland. A Danish court approved the extradition of a 28-year-old Danish man wanted in a Spanish murder case. Several suspects are reportedly in Denmark. 2 men were arrested at the Danish border after police found 66,400 euros in cash hidden in their car. Both were charged with money laundering. A 36-year-old Norwegian man will stand trial in Denmark for 2 attempted murders and is expected to confess. Europol arrested 85 people and seized around 1,000 tons of chemicals in its largest ever operation against synthetic drug production. A 37-year-old man was charged with murdering a fellow resident at an asylum center in Holstebro. 2 men were treated in hospital after a group fight in northwest Copenhagen. One suffered a minor knife wound. Residents in the capital region can now request a callback from the 1813 medical helpline instead of waiting on hold. Now to some Danish business news from January 15th through 21st. Danish stocks fall, January 21st. The C25 index dropped about 0.5% shortly after market opening, driven mainly by Novo Nordisk shares, which fell more than 1.5%. Rising employment. The number of wage earners increased by 1,700 in November to just over 3 million, marking 23 consecutive months of employment growth. Danske Bank recommends gold. For the first time, Danske Bank advises private customers to invest up to 5% of their portfolio in gold as a hedge during weak equity markets. Supermarkets expect price cuts. Major grocery groups expect falling prices, with some products like Lurpak butter already seeing price reductions of over 9%. Fewer entrepreneurs. The number of newly funded companies fell for the 7th year in a row, reaching almost 23,000 in 2025, the lowest level since records began in 2015. New company formation at 10-year low. The decline in startups is broad across sectors, with growth seen only in information and communication. Home buying rises nationwide. Most Danish municipalities saw an increase in new mortgage loans in 2025, with particularly strong growth in Tornby and Samsø. First-time buyers' wealth surges in Copenhagen. Average savings for down payments among first-time buyers in the Copenhagen area have more than quintupled over the past decade. Novo Nordisk shares jump. Novo stocks rose by 6.5% after strong early US prescription data for Wegovy in pill form. Action House bankrupt again. Kampen Aktioner entered bankruptcy proceedings for the second time in 18 months. Carlsberg launches new beer. The brewery introduced Nordlyst, a low-alcohol beer, 2.5%, to tap into growing demand for lower alcohol options. Bang & Olufsen ends Ferrari partnership. B&O terminates its collaboration with Ferrari following the resignation of its former CEO earlier in January. That's all for today from Danish Info News TV. Please like this video, share it, and subscribe to stay informed. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next news update.